Hello, my name is Stephanie Fowl, and I am the Manager of Training and Personnel Development at the ARC of Cape County. It's that time of year, time for the annual Preventing Abuse, Neglect, and Exploitation training. First, we will be watching a video created by Exceptional Home Care. Although she uses the word client, which we do not use, and some of her examples are different, the information is the same.
At least once a year, we review abuse, neglect, and exploitation with all of our employees and our caregivers. It is important that you understand what your responsibilities are in regards to reporting. And since there is always a continuous rise of this going on in our state and in our nation, it's really important that you understand what signs to look for in regards to A&E. So although when we think of abuse, we always think about the physical forms of abuse having to do with physical pain or impairment and things like that. If someone is pushing someone or hitting someone, we also have to be looking for signs of emotional abuse. This includes if people are, cursing at someone or yelling at them or making them feel bad in forms of humiliation or harassment. These can also be considered abuse. And we should be aware of that as well with our clients who are mostly in a vulnerable population. Neglect is the act of failing to give proper care to a client or to a person. This can have to do with denying them food or water, clothing, making sure that they have adequate shelter and hygiene. We do need to look out for this, especially in home care, because a lot of times clients are dependent on other people to make sure that they have the things they need, making sure that they have enough food, that their shelter is accurate. They're depending on other family members and things like that, and even you sometimes to make sure that those things happen. So if you go out to a client's home and you realize there's not enough food in the fridge for them to be properly nourished, if you notice that the house is in ill repute, it's not safe for them to be there. These are the kinds of things that you look for when you are reporting if a client is being neglected. Exploitation is the illegal use of a client's funds, property, or assets. So this has to do if you are notice that a family member is spending a client's money without actually doing things that will provide health or care or well-being for that client. If you notice that they are using money out of their account, if this client doesn't have enough food, but there's someone else that is in charge of all their funds. If someone misuses their funds by taking their bank account number or those so they can care of financially. And if they're unable to take care of their own finances, there could be someone in charge of those finances that also might abuse those things. So we have to be on the lookout for that when we are out at clients' homes. So what do we need to look for? As far as abuse, there's always physical signs if you're talking about physical abuse. So if you notice that your client has bruises or cuts or something that they can't really explain, if they're all of a sudden have injuries that really aren't going along with the health concerns that they had before, some of those things can be signs of abuse. If your client is fearful of the person that is in a position of trust, such as another family member that's in charge of their finances or their living situation, and then all of a sudden they have fear of saying things around them that might get them in trouble or something like that. That's something that you can look for when you're talking about signs of abuse. Neglect, obviously look for physical signs. If the client is dehydrated, if the client is hungry and getting enough food, if the client is being left in the bed too long, they might develop pressure ulcers in places. If there's physical signs that the meds are being withheld and not given to the client on a regular cycle as they're supposed to be. Look out for those things when you're talking about abuse. If there's changes in their weight and changes in their health, it's very important that we make sure that we're aware of what our client normally looks like, so we can notice if there's changes, sharp changes in their health condition, because that could be signs that they're being neglected. Exploitation, when we're discussing things that are going on with our clients' finances, a lot of times we don't know all the particulars. But you can also look for signs of that. If the client is saying that they don't have any access to money, like if you're noticing that they're out of food a lot or they don't have the things that they need, and they say, well, I have someone else that does that, but you never see that person there, or you're not really sure how those exchanges go on, and you feel like it's putting your client in some sort of risk, that could be a sign that their funds are being exploited if they don't have access to purchase the things that they need.
You must report it. Use the agency reporting system. Notify the Associate Chief Program Officer. If unable to reach them, then notify the Compliance and Quality Improvement Director. Then complete a GER. If you feel that additional reporting is needed, then call the 800 number at 800-832-9173. Steps you should take if you see or suspect abuse, neglect, or exploitation is occurring. Stop the event from happening whenever possible. Check the person to see if any help is needed, such as first aid, EMS, or emotional support. Once it is safe, report the incident to the supervisor verbally and follow up with a detailed written report before leaving the shift that day. It should include who, what, when, and where. The supervisor will share the information within the agency at the administrative leadership level, reporting to the necessary state agencies. If at any time an employee does not believe the typical report system was followed, or the employee does not feel comfortable reporting to their agency, they must contact the appropriate state agencies directly. New Jersey DHS, DDD Community Service Office, the Person Support Coordinator or DDD Case Manager. Once staff see something or hear about something, they must report it immediately to the supervisor verbally and in writing. All staff must cooperate in all investigations. The incident may be investigated by someone in their own agency, someone from a state office like the Office of Investigation, OI, or both. The investigation will be objective. People may be more comfortable talking to someone outside the situation, making it easier to find the truth. It is not the DSP's role to investigate the situation or try to find proof. This could make finding the truth much harder. We work together to prevent abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Now we will watch another short video about this topic.
It still shocks me, even after years of working with the disability community. Disabled people are mistreated, sometimes by the very people who help them. Being yelled at, insulted, or threatened, it happens. Someone told me he was called a lazy cripple because he couldn't walk. Verbal abuse hurts. It can happen to any disabled person, even physical abuse, like being kicked, pushed, or handled roughly. Theft of credit cards, medication, or other personal belongings is financial abuse. Medicine can be withheld or needs ignored. This is neglect. Sexual abuse is hard to talk about. Being touched in ways that are uncomfortable or being forced to do sexual acts is horrible. We're talking about power and control. Is someone told who they can talk to, what they can do, where they can go? Are they isolated from family and friends? It can be difficult deciding when and how to intervene. Adults with disabilities have the right to their own choices. They want to be as independent as possible. They need time to do things their own way, even if it means some risk. This can be confusing for loved ones or providers who are concerned about safety. But well-meaning protection, like getting put in a restrictive environment unnecessarily, can feel or be abusive. A big fear is being left with no one if an attendant is fired. Here's the challenge. I try to respect the individual's right to autonomy and self-direction while assessing their safety and decision-making about their own care and well-being. As a provider, I try to create a safe and confidential space for the person. I listen and believe when someone tells me they're being heard. Validating their feelings and strengths is important. Together, we brainstorm resources and ideas. But some people resist the help they really need. I check my thinking with other resource people who know disability and abuse issues. If there is concern for immediate physical safety or survival, you may need to contact the police at 911 or Adult Protective Services without their consent. We should all be familiar with the laws about mandated reporting of abuse. You know, supporting disabled people to stop abuse is one of the most important things I do.
Any questions, you can speak with your program supervisor or anyone at the compliance or training departments. Thank you for watching. Please click the X on the top right corner to exit this presentation. You will then need to click on the 2022 Preventing Abuse, Neglect, and Exploitation training again to have access to the post-test. Please make sure to complete the post-test to receive credit for completing the course. As with all tests, you must get an 80 or above to pass. If you are having difficulties, please contact the training department.